It's Friday, March 19th, and the time for your Barbados Today morning news update. The state-run government industrial school in its present form has outlived its usefulness. That's according to UNICEF's children's champion Faith Marshall Harris, who is recommending the establishment of halfway houses for delinquent adolescents in Barbados to replace the existing male and female correctional institutions. Emmanuel Joseph picks up the story.
Speaking against the backdrop of a recent video that went viral on social media of a girl of the institution who was placed naked in solitary confinement, prompting Home Affairs Minister Wilfred Abrams to launch an investigation into the apparent abuse, Marshall Harris is adamant that comprehensive reform is urgently required. She is also suggesting a re-engineering and a rethinking of the entire operation of the correctional facilities.
I happen to feel that when it comes to adolescents, we should move, especially the girls, we should move more in the direction of halfway houses. The government industrial schools as it presently stands and it's presently set up clearly doesn't seem to be fitting the bill, and probably we need to have a rethink.
The child rights advocate also points out that if for any reason a minor has to be placed in solitary confinement, UN rules dictate that it has to be a last resort and for the shortest possible time.
While depriving a child of their liberty should be used as a last resort and for the shortest possible time, there may inevitably be situations where we need to use the facility and deprive juvenile of their liberty. But we have got to have a facility that follows the rules. And as I said, one of the major rules is that there should be no solitary confinement, but the rules also go on to say that where it is need to separate a child from others, then that person should be accompanied at all times by competent personnel. And that in fact, persons important in the child's life, like parent, guardian, significant adults in their life, and their legal representatives, if there is one, should be informed of any serious development that requires such action.
Marshall Harris is also questioning whether the staff of the government industrial school are acquainted with the Convention on the Rights of the Child when one considers the type of allegations of abuse which are being highlighted by the juveniles. Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
The Rastafari progressive movement is making a case for at least a quarter of the profits from the local medicinal cannabis industry. The position comes as the group expressed growing concern about a number of issues. One such concern is government's recent move to lease a portion of land in Bath St. John to Rastafari groups for agriculture farming. RPM's Public Relations Officer Paul Rassimbarock has criticized the move, questioning why the land lease was not offered to the wider Rastafari community for use of medicinal cannabis farming instead.
On the recent allocating of 100 acres of land to Rastafari, it hasn't gone before Parliament, so it's nothing in solid yet. So this is the idea, and it is very interesting that the government can find land for Rastafari in the amount of 100 acres. We're speaking about support for developing that 100 acres, irrigation, whatever else, they haven't stated clearly. But they couldn't find that finite to be involved in the cannabis industry. They couldn't find land for us. They couldn't find, the sort of technical support, monetary support that would be needed to enter into the industry. And I think that is very notable. And we want to say, as the RPM, that 100 acres of land, agricultural security, food security is a must. Yes, we know that, and the planting, the farming of any land is good, especially organic farming. It is great. So we have no problem. And kudos to Brother Rudy, Al-Kibilan, and those, who have set up on that initiative. But it does not excuse the government from the injustice it has done to the Rastafari community in terms of their exclusion out of the medical cannabis industry.
10 terminated LIAT pilots have strengthened their numbers in the recent class action suit against the Antigua and Barbuda government. As we hear in this report from Emmanuel Joseph, the number of former LIAT pilots has now increased to 16.
6 more former pilots on Thursday came forward to add their names to the constitutional motion filed last week in the High Court in St. John's by Barbadian Flyer Captain Neil Cave, insisting that they will not be bullied into backing down despite a pronouncement Wednesday by Gaston Brown to end all support for LIAT if, as he puts it, pilots and those who represent them should continue to frustrate its efforts to rescue the collapsed carrier. Brown told the Observer Media House in Antigua that he could be forced to hasten the liquidation of the airline while distancing his government from any liability arising therefrom. The Antiguan leader was quoted as saying that it is unfortunate that despite his government's best efforts to salvage LIAT and its undertaking to honor up to 50% of the severance liability on a compassionate basis, that this type of disruptive behavior was being pursued to undermine its efforts. However, Captain Cave told Barbados Today Thursday that the dismissed pilots have a sound claim against the government and will be pressing forward with their case. He contends that Prime Minister Brown was simply looking for a scapegoat because of the situation in which he finds himself and was trying to use this litigation, for which the pilots have a valid claim, as a scapegoat in talking about closing LIAT. The constitutional motion against the government is challenging the constitutionality of the recently amended Companies Act, which prohibits anyone from suing the Antigua and Barbuda government over any claims against LIAT. Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
Meantime, Antigua and Barbuda's Attorney General, Stedroy Benjamin, is confident the recently amended Companies Act can stand up to scrutiny. We get more in this report from ABS News.
But I'm satisfied beyond doubt that the Constitution has not been breached and that it is good, sound law.
Attorney General the Honorable Stedroy Benjamin defending the amended Companies Act, which gives struggling companies an alternative to liquidation. Terminated LIAT pilot Barbadian Captain Neil Cave and 9 other current or former pilots are challenging the law through a class action suit against the government of Antigua and Barbuda. The amendment, which Parliament passed last year, protects companies from creditors while undergoing restructuring under a court-appointed administrator's control. LIAT is the first company to seek protection under the new law. Captain Cave's motion argues the amendment breaches Section 15(8) of the Constitution. This section guarantees a litigant a fair hearing within a reasonable time before an independent and impartial court. The motion asks the court to declare the Companies Act unconstitutional, saying it limits the pilot's right to access the court to complete a 2015 civil claim against LIAT 1974 Limited. But the Attorney General says he's confident the law will stand up to the legal scrutiny.
I have no objections to persons charging its constitutionality. The court will make its determination, but we shall defend that claim most vigorously and ask that the declarations that have been sought be dismissed.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
2 regional developments are now. Officials in Antigua are taking steps to remove 33 inmates at Her Majesty's Prison who tested positive for COVID-19 into an isolation facility at another location. More from this ABS News report.
Acting Prison Superintendent Jermaine Anthony says work to retrofit the facility began Sunday.
The entire facility is linked and ringed with a 10-foot chain link fence. We actually have 2 guard towers that are going to be manned 24 hours a day by prison officials.
Last week, news broke of a COVID-19 outbreak within Her Majesty's prison. Roughly 30% of the prison population tested positive and were subsequently isolated.
Presently, we have 33 inmates in waiting to be transferred to this facility when it would have been completed.
And all these prisoners have tested positive?
All 33 inmates have tested positive and are asymptomatic, however.
Anthony says at least 10 of those prisoners previously availed themselves to the first jab of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine.
And finally, powerful storms wreaked havoc in parts of the U.S. on Thursday. More from Reuters TV.
A crack of thunder and lightning in Fairhope, Alabama was only the beginning. A system of severe thunderstorms that spawned tornadoes left many homes and businesses damaged in Alabama and Mississippi. In Alabama's Chilton County Thursday, some residents were left to pick up the pieces of their destroyed homes. As of Thursday morning, the National Weather Service had over 150 reports of severe weather, including 24 reports of tornadoes in the southeast. Forecasters warn the severe storm with at least a couple tornadoes Thursday was threatening northern Florida, southern Georgia, and the Carolinas.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.